Friends, Jeff, quick announcement. First, as you may know, we are releasing daily on the Around the Circle podcast channel. Early Access, Inside Story, The Morning Show, Rewired. These are all shows you can find all in one place. A dream of ours has been to elevate some great content daily for our hearts, to keep us from the trash out there, give our brains something to chew on that's fresh. All of that is big work for us, but this is secondary. For those of you who want to do real Enneagram work, most of our best resources are at aroundthecircle.org, where we're putting together online discussion groups, we're doing book studies, and we're doing a series of other things that allow us to connect with one another. You can learn about Enneagram from a podcast, but real transformation and use of the tool is going to require other people. So go sign up for a free membership. You'll get emails about what we're up to, access to a whole range of extra content. And alongside this, second, we are looking for folks. We're looking for folks to interview around stress and security and panels as we move into the future. Specifically, we need 2s, 3s, and 7s. And if you're interested, reach out to me on Instagram. Just search for the Around the Circle podcast on Instagram and send me a message. Or you can obviously sign up for a membership at aroundthecircle.org, and then you can just direct message me there and probably get preference. And lastly, our first book, Around the Circle, is up. It's only on Amazon.com and Audible. Hope you have a happy day. May all good things be yours. Hey friends, it's Jeff. It's Around the Circle. I'm with the TJ Wilson.
Hello.
And we're on to the 5s with our stress and security panels. How you doing, boss?
I'm doing all right. It's cold. It's really cold.
It's true. New year, new friends. I'm wearing a hat. The 5s that are with us, some old guests, some new guests. Let me start with folks that we know. The Melissa Kircher is with us. Hello, Melissa.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Is it cold in Arizona?
No, it's not, but I turned the heat on today.
But you still have
It was
the
like, I would just like to preface this that I'm from New England and I lived there. Like, I lived in New England for like 18 years, so I know what I'm talking about. But it was 65 today, and that felt a little chilly, so I put on the heat. I've acclimated to the desert.
Last time we talked about whether we were mourning the fact that you gave away some sweaters. Have you begun recollecting a sweater collection?
I had to buy new sweaters.
You're on
because I'm fragile now.
65. It's too much.
I know.
Josiah Goff is with us. Josiah, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here again.
North Carolina, is that right? Where were you at? You're out
Chattanooga, Tennessee.
That's it. In Tennessee. For those who are new, tell us something about yourself.
I did 7 years of show choir in
Nice.
high school and college, which is not typical for a 5, I think, but yeah.
Would you like to show us an example?
Yeah, the jazz hands.
Jazz.
Yeah.
here.
No, it's a running joke on the Enneagram 5 podcast.
For those of you who filled my inbox with, we think Josiah is a 4, you will notice he did not begin singing. So just in terms of evidence of the 5-ness, that's where I'm going to start. And then Nadia, where are you from?
Well, I'm originally from California, but I just keep pushing further and further east. I've lived, fun fact about me is that I've moved 4 states in the last 6 years. So originally from California, then to New Mexico, then to Colorado, and most recently just landed in North Carolina.
Come on. What has you moving?
What has me moving? Everything. I first moved from California in COVID. I'm a psychotherapist, and it was time to do my internship, and I'm from a tiny little rural town in California, and everything shut down and I couldn't find anywhere to work. So,
It's fair.
moved to Santa Fe and began doing work there.
Hey, and I heard you're living in the mountains now.
I am, yeah.
But you also said the mountains are not as active as perhaps Colorado mountains, or am I wrong? Is there some reason that these North Carolina mountains are not active?
I don't know if the mountains are inactive, but the people are less peopling out here than in Denver. I mean, I live in a town now with, I think, 2,000 people coming from Denver with 3 million. So there just is, I'm an hour and a half west of Asheville, just like right up in the Smoky Mountains. So,
Cool.
yeah, just very, very different.
Well, we're talking fives, stress and security. And to get into this, big thing for TJ and I is that all of the types have a head, have a body, have something else. What's the thing that I'm missing?
Heart.
Have an
Heart.
intellect, have a heart. We have 3 centers, head, heart, and body. And we each have a relationship with those and a way that we engage our head, ways that we engage our heart and our body. And we're going to start just there, just talking about five-ness and how you all relate to each of the centers. So starting with the head, when you think about your relationship with your head, cognition, with analysis, and the rest, how would you describe your relationship with your head?
My head feels like home.
Home is
Yeah.
good language there.
It's my safe space that I retreat to. It's where I figure out my problems. It's where I work through things. It's where I go when I'm feeling drained.
And can that all happen sort of like any place that you're in? Like your body is at a concert, but you need to retreat for a minute so you can just like tune out?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
In fact, most of my life, until recent years, I pretty much stayed there the whole time. Yeah, so I would be physically present, but rarely was I mentally present.
Do y'all relate or have anything to add on that?
I wonder if I used to be that way, and I used to be a sexual 5, and my subtype has changed to a self-pres 5. So I used to find that I could be in my head anywhere as a sexual 5 and retreat and get what I needed in different places. As a self-pres 5, having a home cave really helps me reground and recenter and gain access to my head in a way that I find I can't as much anymore out in the world. But yeah, I do resonate with home a lot. Although sometimes I wish that like the door would open and I could leave.
Yeah,
It gets a little chaotic in there sometimes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I wish home wasn't so cluttered all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk about that for 2 seconds, and then I'll get to you, Nadia. But there's a grounding element to your head, but there's also a chaotic element to your head. Is that what I'm hearing?
It really depends on my motivation for why I'm going into my head a lot. So, when I was a lot less healthy and hadn't done any of the work, I would retreat into my head to avoid things. For me, it's the difference between solitude and isolation, right? I'm coming in. When I was like before, I would try to avoid my emotions, avoid the uncomfortable situations with other people, and so in that, it's not a restful place. There's a lot of frantic energy that I'm trying to regulate, but having difficulty. Versus there are times when it's kind of hard to explain. I think Melissa had good language around like grounding. There's a distinction, and I can feel it, but it's hard to describe it. There's a distinction when I'm going into solitude, not to get away from something, but to move towards something. And in that, then it is grounding and restorative and feels calming. But there are 2 very different versions of going into my head.
It's good. Nadia, how do you come to this relationship with your head?
Well, the first word that came to me was codependent. Like I feel like I'm in a codependent relationship with my head. We're learning to be okay, being more separate. Being in my head is the way that I resonate with what Josiah is saying, in the sense of I actually want to move closer to others. And in that effort, I go into my head to try to make sense of what that means and what that looks like. And what do I feel like this person needs? And what do I need? And how do I, like, let me try to feel it. And I didn't realize for a long time that I was operating out of a headspace and not a heart space. It took me a really long time to understand that. I thought that I was a 4 for many, many years. And just in the last maybe 4 years, 5 years, I really got to see, oh no, I'm operating out of a headspace, not a heart space when I'm doing that.
A lot of people would go ahead.
Can you describe the difference there? Like, what should the rest of us look for if we're stuck in that place?
Well, it's still just so analytical. It's like I'm still just in my head observing and not actually leading from a different center. It's like I'm trying to make sense of it because that gives me the safety to then move forward. And I have a really strong social instinct. So I think that also that, intertwines, and where do I belong and where do I fit in, and, all of these different things. But it becomes the trap that then prevents me from actually opening my heart or taking action. Like, it keeps me stuck in this headspace where I just get stuck in this like analysis paralysis or functional freeze that gets in the way of like doing something else.
A lot of folks would come to their relationships with fives thinking that fives don't engage their heart or emotions much. But from the inside, you're saying it actually was difficult to see the distinction between the two. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do people get that wrong? And two, can you see your way through that?
Oh my gosh.
Do you know
It's like the $1 million question. I'm so curious what you both think, but for me, it's been such an interesting thing because, I've known about the Enneagram for a decade. And when I first read about the 4, I was like, oh yeah, well, a lot of that tracks. And then about 4 years ago, I was listening to a Beatrice Chestnut book, like The Guide to Waking Up, I believe. And so I started with the 4 on audiobook. And I was like, oh yeah, a lot of this does resonate. And then for some odd reason, Spotify did the book in reverse. So it went like 4, 3, 2, 1. And so it ended at the 5. And I didn't know too much about the 5. And I think that we don't know a lot about the 5 because we like to hide. And we're so tender and sensitive and like turtle-like in that way. But I ended on the 5. And it just wrecked me. I mean, it just like blew me open. And my husband, who's an 8, always struggled with me being a heart type. He was like, yeah, I don't know, 4. I don't know. I'll give it to you, but we'll see. And after listening to the 5 and just like me bawling, and I went out and I was like, I think I'm a 5. And I just saw the relief in his body. He like took this deep breath and just like leaned up against the wall. Was like, that makes so much more sense. He's like, you engage from your head constantly. So I'm so curious to hear your guys' experience between head and heart.
Well, I thought I was a 4 as well, and resonated with a ton of it and spent a year doing Enneagram work as a 4. And then one day it hit me. I just was like, I don't think I go to 2, like, ever. and then I looked and I was like, ooh, I don't think either of those arrows describe me. And something just kind of prompted me. I was like, you should look at 5 again. I looked at 5. And I read Personality Types, the orange one by Riso and Hudson, where it goes through the levels of health. And my husband found me sobbing in a bathtub, being like, this feels like he took all of my skin and peeled it all off, and all of my guts are outside, and you can see all of them, and it's terrible, and what is this thing? And that was many years ago, and I've made peace between it. But it was the same thing, very sensitive, very emotional, but intellectualizing all of that. There's such a difference between, and again, it's a sensation, kind of like Josiah said, of I can tell when I'm thinking my feelings versus feeling my feelings. And it's a more of a heart-body thing when I'm in my heart space. It's like words and logic start dissipating like fog, and then I'm in it, and then there's an invitation to stay in it versus my head trying to kind of calm me, be like, well, but we could think about this, we could make this make sense. It's like, or you could just feel sad, you know. So that's, for me, that's the difference.
One of the hardest things for me to accept as a 5 has been that feelings are not problems to be solved, they're sensations to be felt and experienced.
Yep.
And I still, even saying that out loud, there's a little part of me that's just, squirming, that doesn't want to accept that that's true, because to what Nadia was talking about, because I also have a strong forewing, and I am social dominant for sure. And I would go inward to try to just understand my feelings, right? I'm like, I have this really strong emotional response. That is very uncomfortable. I don't feel like I should have this emotional response. So let's try to pick it apart and unpack it so that we can figure out how to not have this emotional response again, right? And I would go inward and spiral in that way. And so there was a lot of, my head and my heart, I saw my head more as like a laboratory where I could experiment to try to like pull apart the pieces to understand my heart so that I essentially could control it.
The control piece is interesting because I think one of the gifts of 5 is that we have observational skills to accurately pinpoint when emotionality will be well received and how to emote. And we also have the observational skills to see here are the potential disastrous consequences of losing control. And so it's a gift. And yet, at the exact same time, our lives would be better if we lost control more often, because other people are yearning for us to just be messy and emotional in front of them.
That makes 100%. Me want to throw up. And I'm a therapist.
So we're moving through head and immediately kind of pivoting to heart. I think this really does showcase that we'll notice that the body hasn't really been touched on yet. And that in and of itself, I think, highlights where I would want to go with 5s, is that 5s think about their feelings, and that this is something that a lot of us don't see. A lot of folks, when looking at 5s, see objectivity and zero bias. Do you all? I associate bias with the emotions, that we kind of have an emotional draw to certain things that colors our thinking. Would you affirm that, or would you push against that and say, no, I push into as hard as I can into objectivity itself? Do you see where I'm going there?
What is it? What even is objectivity?
This is what I want to hear from a 5. Is a 5 saying what is objectivity? Because
I think that sounds good, and it sounds very appealing to be like, oh yes, as a 5, I am much more objective because I can, separate myself and get perspective and observe and take in all the information and then figure things out. But the reality is that's our bias, right? And I think because we do that a lot, like we have a lot of we can have a lot of underdeveloped skills in things like intuition and pieces that actually can experientially be more objective. It can help you see what's really going on, but we overemphasize the analytical piece and our intellect and try to understand things that way. And so we can have a really great theoretical head knowledge of something that sounds good and objective, but is missing a lot of the underlying felt experience and wisdom that comes through actually experiencing things.
I'd also put forward that it societally we seem to value objectivity without recognizing the massive problems that objectivity can bring until they're hitting us. There's this sort of halo over the idea of objectivity that a lot of us think is a great thing. And so like the natural objectivity that fives can bring, if it's not tempered with the reality that we're all humans and we need to learn how to live together, then the objectivity is pointless. It serves no real good.
Yeah. I would add that sorry, Nadia, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you go.
Neutrality, I think, is a 5 positive. As a coach, Enneagram and life coach, I can use my objectivity to create neutrality, meaning I can sit with a plethora of different people with a myriad of different stories and backgrounds, and what they need from me is to create neutral space that is, and by creating neutral space and using my objectivity, it then becomes safe. Because if I'm putting myself out here, but also caring, like I'm in it, but I'm creating space for you, then my heart is engaged, my head is engaged, my body is engaged, and it is neutral, safe space. And I think that is such a gift of fives, meaning you can come as you are, and I will work to understand all the different parts of you. Where it gets tricky then is the darker side of that is also the world needs us to have our very strong opinions and be in touch with our intuition and act and do, and not just be neutral all the time.
Yeah, I agree with both of what you're saying. And like, yes, I feel it in my body as you're speaking. So naming that, I feel pretty, at this point in my life, I feel pretty in touch with my intuitive function. I use it a lot in my work. You know, I specialize in early childhood trauma. I work from a Jungian and depth psychological psychodynamic perspective. So I'm really with the unconscious and really with soul. And as a 5, it's been such a journey for me to trust that without the quote unquote evidence that then will lead me to naming something I'm seeing or naming something I'm feeling or intuiting. And that was a huge struggle for me in my training of like, oh, but I don't have the evidence, right? And so in doing that and in using the intuitive function has really helped me get out of what I would call maybe like the shadow side of objectivity that I think you two are speaking to really well. And also just like I have my own unconscious, and my unconscious is working all the time. And I think as 5, sometimes that's where maybe our superiority can come out sometimes of like, oh, I'm just so objective and everyone else is so emotional. And I think going back to what Melissa's saying is like, yeah, and the world like needs that. Like we need to be more in our bodies and in our heart spaces and like make claims.
Making claims makes me want to throw up.
I also think another part of that, I definitely resonate with both of what you're saying. I think another part of that too is that, you know, we are good at, I love what you said, the creating that neutral space. And it's because we're not getting sucked into someone else's emotion and their emotional state. And at the same time, that also means that we're probably not going to actively try to get into that with them and sit in that with them, right? We're going to hold space, but we're also going to hold distance. We're going to keep our distance and create a space for them to do their thing, but we're not going to really like want to sit in that. And that has been something that I've had to really practice in my relationships, is the ability to, sit in that with other people. and not just keep my distance from it.
Is there a difference? I would love to sit on the heart for a little bit longer here. Is there a difference between not getting sucked into somebody else's emotional space and not valuing your own emotions? Those seem very different to me in terms of the heart center.
Can you say more about what you mean? Like, I'm so
yeah.
curious to hear how somebody who's not a 5 experiences.
My if I was shooting from the hip, I would suspect that 5s really do value their own emotions. And I would also suspect that 5s see other people's emotions as a huge suck a lot of the time. And those are two different postures towards quote unquote emotions. Your own emotions, I imagine, are more of a priority. And when other people get emotional, you can see that they're emotional. You can even give value to their emotions. But pivoting and saying, I'm going to address this person's emotions cognitively as a shield against using up the energy that I have, is how I would suspect things would go in the inner life of a 5.
Can I speak for myself? And not all 5s?
I just want to acknowledge the pondering face of all
were we
three
all
of
looking
you.
up?
Just all
like...
3 of you, just like, It's wonderful.
I just want to speak for me and not all 5s. So, caveat. For me, there's so many different places to go there. That's such a meaty question. One, my job. No, I am entering into the emotional states of other people. If I didn't, I would not be a good coach. And I don't find it draining. I get out of sessions and I am zipping with energy. And that's just speaking for me. So the 5s are wired differently. We're all different humans. In other times, that is not my professional setting, I definitely can enter into other people's emotions and I don't find it draining, but I will be more withdrawing because I'm not necessarily like protecting my energy. It's like, I'm trying to like use words. It feels safer to think about what they're saying and then later figure out what I need to do to fix the problem, other than getting into an emotional back and forth in the moment. That feels so messy and like surprising, and I don't know what's going to happen. And so to get both of us emotional in the moment feels versus just and this is all like, it's not a thought process. This is just an innate wiring, a subconscious thing, if you will, that then I find myself later figuring out what is mine to do to fix the issue versus hashing it out in the moment emotionally. Because I know how fraught that gets, and that is tiring, but I'm not necessarily trying. It feels safer to see what I can fix on my own versus ask the other person, hey, you need to fix something. You hurt me. You pissed me off. You did this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. One of the things that you said there, Jeff, was valuing, I think you said valuing our own emotions over other people's. I don't think that has been true for me personally. And I think that the earlier versions of Josiah, it was very much, I was so afraid of my own emotions because I didn't know if they were a bottomless pit, right? I didn't know if I would get swept up in them and not be able to get back out again. And they just felt so intense that I wanted to run away from them. And I also had a lot of trauma, and I didn't have the tools to deal with that. I didn't have the awareness to deal with that. And so I discounted other people's emotions and I avoided other people's emotions, but it was primarily because I was afraid their emotions would trigger my emotions. And I wanted to avoid that. And then as I, started going on a healing journey and went through a lot of that and started getting more comfortable with my emotions, then I would avoid other people's emotions, I think, because I felt like I didn't have the skills to I'm like, I know how hard it is for me to work, like sit with my own emotions. Like, I don't feel like I have the skills to deal with someone else's, but it's not just anyone's emotions. It's like the people that I care about, the people I'm in a relationship with, and that like specifically like my wife or my kids. And so there was more fear there that I wouldn't have the capability or the competence required to navigate that dynamic, that relationship dynamic, without causing damage. And then I also was I didn't have confidence in my own ability to repair after I create damage. And so it was just a lot of slowly exposing myself to those situations to build those confidence and those skills until I've got to the point where I'm like, I feel like I can walk into any emotional situation and be fine. And I've had to have a lot of really tough conversations. But that took years for me to get to the point where I could do that.
Thoughts, Nadia?
Yeah, I'm resonating so much with what you're both saying. I think for me, it almost feels like the wiring of my five-ness historically has been the opposite, where I've put a lot more emphasis on other people's emotions and less on mine. And it's taken a long time to be able to be okay with the deep vulnerability of feeling for myself. And I think becoming a psychotherapist and being on this journey for 7 years now has been really just good for me in the sense of really valuing my own emotions and letting space be given to that emotional side of me. But I notice that when I'm with somebody, and not in my career or work-wise, but let's just say with my husband, if he's feeling a lot of emotion, I feel like almost like it's the respectful thing, whether this is right or wrong, but the respectful thing to give this space for that person to have their experience without the infiltration of my own stuff. It feels like deep respect, and I think that's great in some scenarios and not so great in others, but I just think about my own childhood and like the real desire to have my feelings held without somebody else's coming in. It's like I think that there's that unconscious tendency I have now, which is helpful in some situations and not so helpful in others. Yeah.
And it seems to me like when we talk about fives, we talk about greed and avarice and that sort of withholding of like the collecting the resources and wanting to keep them close and safe. And it sounds like emotional experience is part of that, and not necessarily in a I want to hold these all to myself, but in the protective nature of that greed, the desire to make sure that your stuff doesn't force anything on anyone else, but also other people's stuff doesn't change yours in ways that you can't adapt to or repair or whatever else. Like that the idea of holding on to the things that are important, that greed that we talk about with fives, like the emotional life of fives lives within that same kind of restriction. That's what I'm hearing from all of you, and not necessarily in a terrible, like greedy way, but that's part of holding and protecting the things that are important to you. Is that right?
I think if you had many, many more fives in a panel, there would be some sort of through line of our little selves not feeling that we had resources that we needed to have the emotions that we wanted to or needed to, and any of the resources, time, energy, like it would be a bunch of different stories from in a bunch of different iterations, but it would be some kind of younger self realizing, oh, I've got to take care of this on my own. And so, yeah, emotions go into that. And that's why there's the avarice, because I don't know where else it will come from if not from me.
So don't risk it, right?
So
It's
don't
like,
risk it. Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
risk it.
Smart.
Yeah, I learned really early on I can't rely on others for that. I have to do it myself.
That makes me tear up. Same.
Of all things, that sounds like a primary to me for the heart of a 5. Is that that's not only something that's kind of core, but something that probably got internalized early on. My experience of that with my 5 child is in some of the stories that we have, which I won't go into again, but it feels like the funnel of being a 5. The world is coming at you. You experience it. And one of the things that naturally is produced in the heart and mind of a 5 is I can't rely on other people.
Yep.
And one that's worth naming, one that seems incredibly natural.
The both and experience that I think maybe all 5s have experienced in childhood is that both and of being both overwhelmed and neglected. And I think that fits in to what we're talking about right now of being with others and their emotions, and then being with ourselves and our emotions. Like this, not being able to trust somebody's going to be there when I need them, and somebody's not going to overwhelm me when I need space. Like, that is such a hard tension relationally for most 5s. I see you nodding, right? Yeah.
I suppose
Yeah.
from the outside, that seems to describe a lot of stuff for folks who might want to think that 5s aren't emotional. Is if you're coming to the world with that posture right there, that folks can be a drain on resources, but also more primary, that others can't be relied on, that's going to create an emotional dynamic between the 5 and other folks that at least they're going to interpret a certain way. Am I wrong in saying that?
There's and this is something that I even up until recently have had on repeat in the back of my mind, this voice of that's always trying to convince me that I'm better off alone, right? That no matter what happens, no matter where I get in my life, I can do all the work and I'm still going to be better off alone, because I'm either my needs are too much for others, or I don't have the skills to be able to give other people what they need in my life. And it would just be better if I sequestered myself and worked on myself until I felt the confidence that I could actually step into life without hurting other people, or, without having all of my energy drained from me. And it's just this story that had been on repeat like my whole life. And it was a problem I thought that I had to solve, and which made me go inward even more.
Do y'all relate to that?
Yeah, I mean, I can remember a phone call to my husband. I got married young, in my 20s. Just saying angrily, like, I don't understand why everybody just can't leave me alone. I would be so much happier if I could just be alone and nobody needed anything from me, and I didn't have to do anything for everybody else if I could just be by myself. And that is a very different me than me now, but that is, 20 years of experience of learning how valuable relationships are and how much we need other people, and then dancing with the push-pull. I don't know if that's part of the maybe 4 mistype or the 4 wing of, there is some push-pull there of needing resources from others and yet feeling like the only resource we can trust is ourselves. And so the back and forth of that, it creates a growth journey, if you will. So yeah,
but
really
notice
resonate.
that with 4s, it's very much a relational experience. With
Yes.
5s, it's analytical. It's about resources. It's about what I can handle, what I think other people can handle. It's not inherently relational from that heart center.
Agreed.
Two final things, and then we'll pivot to the body. But this is what I was trying to put my thumb on with the setup of the question, that like I have a relationship with my own emotions, and then I have a relationship with other people's emotions, and maybe it's other people's needs, demands, energy in my life. And that, I suppose, just a full circle, that's where that feels like they're, for the rest of us in understanding fives, it ends up understanding the emotional life of a five feels like it's in that space. Fives strike me as very emotional, aware of their emotions, aware of your emotions, and may not showcase that. It seems like that just needs to be named.
Yeah.
Is that a worthwhile summary of this?
Yeah, because it's not safe. Like it feels intrinsically safer to, without deciding to, feel the emotions alone and process them in solitude. And it takes effort to think through having emotionality be part of a relationship in the moment and express how you feel in the moment and allow your body to be in whatever state that is in the moment. Learn about nervous system regulation, like learn about healthy expressions of emotionality, unlearn some things society says about what adults can and cannot do emotionally, because we logically go, oh, adults can do this, but sometimes adults need to stomp their freaking feet, you know? And so there is a lot of, I don't know what I was going to say to end that well, but whatever I said before that, hopefully that made sense. It completely went out of my brain. So
to spin it positive, I had started this by talking about objectivity and neutrality, and the answers that were given strike me as very emotional in nature in terms of grounding why objectivity and neutrality matter. The valuing of safety, the valuing of caring about the person in front of me, those are value judgments. Those come out of an emotional place that is giving stability to why I value the objectivity I have. Long story short, it seems like those are just intertwined with fives in a way that I think is incredibly helpful to see. And actually, when getting to fours, which we will soon in the future, it's going to be a mirror image here that's also worth kind of naming. So, hey, Melissa, you said
Yes.
that making claims makes me want to throw up, and that was about getting into your body. There's not even much action going on there. It's all intellect. And still it's the case that the acting is a place that there's a slight aversion. You want to talk about getting into your body?
Yes and no.
Make some claims about it?
So I've done a lot of work to get in touch with my body, to learn its voice, to pay attention to it. And yet things can throw that off easily. I moved 3 years ago, and I have just recently noticed, oh, wait, like I have been more disconnected from my body than I was 3 years ago. And then what do I need to do to go back to the practices that I knew were really good for me, in terms of like making sure when I run, I'm listening to music and not podcasts. I'm getting out of my head and I'm listening to things that interact with my heart, or listening to nothing and noticing how my breathing is and what the rhythm of my footfalls, like doing yoga in a slow way versus I need to work out and be efficient kind of way. In terms of intuition, I'll just give you, like, I don't want to make claims. That's hard. So to speak from intuition, again, has been an experiential thing of learning how important that is. I think it helps with my job. A lot of times I've just had to lean into the energy of all things that flows at times. And I'll just be like, I'm noticing, I'm feeling, I see this. And then like the magical responses that happen between me and a client in a session that are based on intuition. And I have no evidence that what I'm going to say that coming out of my mouth will at all land, resonate, be correct, or whatever. And then lastly, respecting my body and its voice is extremely important. It is why I've been in physical therapy for the past 2 months, because I did not listen to my body, and it said almost out loud, I was doing yard work and I live in the desert and everything is pokey, and I knew I was doing yard work in the desert with the pokey things, and we have these things called a blue agave, and they are like people height, and I heard a voice say, you should be done now. You've been doing this a while. You should stop. You need to get on some protective clothing or you're going to get hurt. And I was like, another 2 minutes. And I immediately after I ignored it, jammed my elbow, the softest, most squishy part of my elbow, into a tip that was 2 inches long of a blue agave that is needle sharp and is apparently filled with toxic stuff.
They call it tequila.
It's it's bad for you to go on your insides, and I was in terrible pain for about a month, doing physical therapy, all the tests, because I heard my body say, "Don't do this." I heard it say, "You're tired. You're like basically it was intuiting. Because you're tired. You need to just stop. Like you're not going to be as careful as you were at the beginning of this." And had I listened, and I can't tell you how many times I've ignored my intuition / my body's voice, and have paid dearly for doing so, because it's usually correct, and my logical self, egoic self, is usually wrong.
I'd love to set the other two of you up with a question on this. When I think about fives getting into their body, immediately I'm thinking about action. That's not what's being talked about here. What's being talked about here is whether or not we're going to trust the intuitional side of our nervous system and ourself. Yeah, it's a very cognitive way of thinking about getting into your body.
Don't call us out like that.
It's
Well, dang it.
it's definitely
just
part
an
of it.
observation.
Yeah, it's definitely part of it. For me, with my body, for most of my life, I viewed my body as the vessel to carry my mind around in. And and I almost resented that I had a body, because my body has needs and I have to maintain it. And like my body gets, and I had issues, some health issues when I was younger, and I had chronic fatigue really badly. And so it was always drained, and it just felt like a burden to have a body. And it's only, I'm almost 40, and it's only in the last year and a half that I've started to really engage with my body and treat my body like I value it. And I started working out last year, and I've been doing that consistently, and I completely changed the relationship with my body. But and through that, I'm learning all of this stuff that I'm like, I can't believe it's taken me this long to figure out, because so many things that I've wanted come through my body and my relationship with my body. So if I could share a quick story here, because I think it's a great illustration. I recently started running an experiment with my wife, where anytime I see her, I summon like every ounce of energy I can, like positive energy, and I just run up and give her a big hug and just hold her for at least a minute. All right, every time I see her, especially when she's in a negative emotional state, when I sense that she is feeling down or overwhelmed or sad. Before, my instinct and my default, my instinct would be, I'm going to give her space, because that's what I would want, right? And so I would back up, and give her space, which is, no matter how many times she tell me that's not what she wants, like that's what would come through. So instead, I would just come and I would hold her, and I would create this container physically with my body that communicates, whatever you're feeling, you're okay to feel it, and I'm here and I'm supporting you in this, and like we can feel it together, and I can help hold you in this space. And the result, like on her end, has been like that just shifts her whole energy, her whole physiology, and she's able to come out of that mood. And that wasn't my goal. It's just like, I just want to see what happens if I do this consistently. But there was resistance at the beginning, because there's that voice telling me that like, oh, this is inauthentic, right? And you're trying to fake it till you make it. And because you don't actually feel this energy, you don't actually feel these positive emotions right now, because I've spent so long suppressing my emotions that it's really hard for me to feel, especially the subtle, more positive emotions like joy and satisfaction and things like that. But what I noticed, it only took a couple of days, what I noticed was that after doing this intentionally, consciously with my body, I almost had like a Pavlovian response where every time I saw her, I then started, the emotion started welling up. And I'm like, oh my God, because this is what I wanted, right? This is what I've always wanted in my life, is to feel these joyous emotions. But it had to start with me like paving the way with my body intentionally before I started feeling it. And then I started like feeling it everywhere. I went for a walk and I saw these 3 eastern bluebirds, and I just got this welling of joy up in me because I thought, I just loved how they looked. And I walked by the dog park and there's this beautiful Dalmatian and I saw it, and it just like, I almost started tearing up, like, what is happening to me? But it all started just from this consistent, intentional act of using my body, through that means. And so I had always tried to figure out, like, analytically, logically, how do I use my mind to do this? But that's not how it works. And so that's been a huge lesson for me, is just the value of getting into my body for things like intuition, but also emotions and connection and everything that I actually want. 99% of it probably comes through getting into my body and letting myself inhabit my body and the space around me and the relationships around me.
I'm going to bring that back up when we get to security here in a minute, because there's a lot to be said there. But Nadia, do you have any thoughts about your relationship with your body?
I can't follow up on that. Don't ask me to follow
Well, do you relate to that then, at least?
I do. Yeah.
What elements hit you most?
Wow. Even just getting here to this podcast, recording and showing up in this way took a lot of consciousness for me, because there were a couple times I saw the Instagram post and then I was like, oh, that might be fun. Oh, nope, you can't do that. Like, don't go make claims. Don't show up, right? It's like it became this thing that was bigger than just the action of it or just showing up. I had to intentionally not listen to the 6 stress line podcast you sent out because I didn't want to get in my head around it. And then, I've had my fair share of, is that funny? Yeah, it's so real.
Josiah is nodding, and I thought I was helping by giving you all prep so that you get your head around it. And yeah,
it's like, I just can't even do that. Like, then I'm going to spin and try to, try to come up with answers. And it's like, it's like me not showing up authentically. But, I've had my fair share of health issues and chronic pain, and went through a big spine injury 2.5 years ago and spine surgery 2 years ago. And nothing teaches you the present moment as much as having pain, physical pain. Like what a teacher that is in every moment, because as a 5, you can't get up and out. You can't move out. Like, your body is here. And when I went through that, it really taught me so much about how much I neglect my body and neglect every moment. But just a little quick story is, my husband got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes 2.5 years ago. And so he's insulin dependent, and it was just, a shock. Got COVID, didn't recover, turned into an autoimmune disease. Anyway, he had a really hard night last night, and we were up with his blood sugar levels all night. So I only got about 2 hours of sleep. And the whole morning I was like, I don't have energy for this podcast. Like, I don't have it. That's like where my head went. And it was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? How am I going to show up? And then I just went outside and I talked to the tree, and I put my hand on the tree outside and I just breathed with it. And it was amazing how just taking those 2 minutes made me feel so much more in my body in the present moment. And it gave me the energy in my body to show up here and let go of that avarice that says somehow I don't have enough. Right?
Very well said. TJ, I bet you have opinions about bodies having needs and the burden of having a body and pain as a teacher. So anything we're saying there, my man?
I have thoughts about all of those things. It's interesting to hear a lot of this from the 5 perspective, because I, as a 9, I resonate with a lot of these similar issues about bodies, and as someone with a chronic pain disease, I understand all of those things that y'all are saying, and there's. I had a word that I wrote down. There's this interesting thing about, like, for 4s, 5s, and 9s, about making it make sense. Like we need to sense the purpose, the meaning, the whatever behind that sort of like physical engagement. And for me, for 9s, like the information has to make sense within my body. And I think for 4s, the information has to make sense within their heart. And for 5s, the information has to make sense in their head, right? So then engaging from that body place, there's it's so like you can't read that information. You can't study it. You have to experience it in the physical world. Like that's part of what the gut center is our experience of reality all around us. And you can't study that and have it actually make sense. It has to go through your body to get to the place where it's a lived experience. And yeah, we could talk all day about the ways that pain and those kinds of problems complicate all of that issue, but that was a big part of what I was thinking about. It's like we have to experience it in the world in order for it to make sense. And that's very different from the analysis.
Yeah, and we have to be willing to expend the energy to use our bodies in the world. That's another big thing for me is I had this like this energy management, energy conservation where the thought of any kind of physical exertion felt painful because it's like, why would I waste energy on that? Right. Unless it's like directly, contributing to a specific goal that's going to help in this way further something that I'm trying to understand with my mind. Right. Why would I waste energy on physical activity? And so a lot of my life has been very sedentary. Also, I was a software engineer for several years. So that's a big part of it too, is just sitting at my desk coding. But I had this mentality, and that was the first thing that I had to change to actually start exercising, because I tried different things and I could never make it stick. But I finally, I have this sticky note. I don't know if you guys can read it here, but it says, I am an athlete. I had to, and it's on my monitor, and I had to start there where I had to go from, I had this story of like, I'm not someone who enjoys working out. Like I hate movement. and I had these stories, and then I had to switch it to, I'm an athlete. And that started, it sounded really woo woo and inauthentic at first, but it's very much that process of sort of rewiring things. And then I just, slowly started, building consistency in through small goals and then got to the point where I started working with a trainer. And now, like last week, I lifted more than my body weight for the first time in my life. I'm like, this is amazing. And I feel strong, and I'm generating energy. That's the thing. I have way more energy now that I'm actually doing physical things. But I had to flip that story and rewire that part of my identity in order to get there.
Yeah. And as many of us know, like those kinds of physical experiences are only possible down a long road of building that up first.
Yeah.
And like that whole section of building it up before you get to experience the good parts is like torture. It's hell.
Melissa, you teased the cactus story, but you've had recovery, which is a whole nother dynamic. There's trusting what your body is saying about potential dangers, but then physical recovery, I imagine, has its own. You have your own relationship with in these spheres, the engaging your body at that level. Was anything coming to your mind as they were talking?
I was agreeing and listening, but what you just said is, so I was sick a lot as a child and young adult, so also struggled with just constantly being diagnosed with things. grew up in an abusive household. And so when there were boundaries finally with that, it was wildly interesting to see how those diagnoses started falling away and health came very naturally to my body. And I think I have a little bit of a difference in Josiah in that I am naturally love movement and not action in terms of like I'm a withdrawing and doing is hard. Like, do I have to talk myself into writing an email? Yes. Like, but physicality, like give me a project to tackle that's physical and I will just go at it in a way that you wouldn't necessarily think, especially like if capability is a problem for me, like thinking I'm always incapable. But what I find in recovery of things and in a journey of finding health is how I was talking terribly to my body about it. I was not kind in my internal monologue, internal talking to what it was capable of doing, especially when I was sick, and some messages were given to me by others, as a young person and, became my messages that I was saying. But I think I still have to be careful, like with running, it's not just like, oh, like right now I noticed like I need to listen to music and not podcasts. It's also that I need to make sure that I'm listening to how hard I'm running and when I need to stop and not putting nasty words into my body about what it is. It's like, no, actually, a couple of months ago I was running and I just had to go mantra, like gentle, slowly. It doesn't matter how fast you run right now. It doesn't matter what you look like to everybody else. Even if you're barely jogging, like barely jog, like gentle, slowly. And so recovery, even from this injury that was my own stupid fault, was still about listening and being gentle and careful of, some of the things that the physical therapy people were saying to do is making it worse. And I had to go, this is the logical thing to do, but it doesn't feel good. And I think I should do this instead and be like, I'm going to try that instead. And that felt better. The thing my body said to do felt better than what the physical therapist said to do. So it's a wrestling match to, again, be kind and honor my physical beingness.
And to treat it as part of ourselves. Like it is very easy to slide into that idea that our bodies are a vehicle for our mind. And they're not. They're part of us. That's like, I don't exist without this body. Maybe someday, maybe it's all a simulation. Who knows? But like that, within the parameters of the simulation, our bodies are part of ourselves. And those of us who are body repressed, like we do have to spend that energy to remind ourselves that our body is part of us and we have to listen to it and we have to treat it like it knows what it's talking about.
I have just a quick story. So my husband and 8, just is moving from his body all the time. It's where he starts, and one of our like infamous arguments that we find ourselves in, or curiosities, if you want to frame it more positively, is when we are at crosswalks, he will just walk in front of cars. He will just walk across streets. He will just take up space. And I'm over here like, what are you doing? And he's like, Nadia, I trust myself enough to know that I will survive this. Like, I trust my body enough to know that I can like dodge a car if I need to, or I can get out of the way. And I'm like, there is not enough trust in the world for me to trust that enough. It's so fascinating. Yeah.
Friends, it's Jeff. This is just the first half of our conversation with the Fives. Full episode, the full 2-hour discussion is at aroundthecircle.org. Sign up for a membership and you can see everything we've got on there. Our best content is all at aroundthecircle.org. It's not just learning the Enneagram. It's about connecting with other people, connecting with your number, connecting with us. We're trying to create as many opportunities for folks to connect with one another as we can, and just doing the work together. So head to aroundthecircle.org, catch the rest of this episode. The back half is fantastic. We spent another hour on getting into stress and security moves, the dynamics of the inner lives of fives, and just what that looks like, the movement around the circle. So if that interests you, jump on board, catch what we're doing there, and here's the end. Y'all, this has been a stellar time, and it's really energized me. I'm really grateful for your time and bringing your fullest self to the table. So many thanks. Last words before we sign off, teacher.
Those who are into the Enneagram know a lot of things, and the more time we spend, the more we learn we don't know. And part of what we don't know about fives is all the stuff that fives keep to themselves. And it takes a lot of courage and will and energy to show up and to make claims. And we're all very grateful. So, thanks.
Truth. Truth. As we're signing off, just real quick, if folks want to get in touch with you, Nadia, are you open for business in terms of your therapy practice?
I'm open for business. In what context, Jeff? No, yeah. Instagram, Nadia Ray Brackett, website, NadiaRayBrackett.com.
Bang. Melissa, you have a fantastic Instagram presence yourself. Where can people connect with you?
Enneagram Paths, PATHS, on Instagram, Threads, or my website is the exact same thing.
And that's for coaching?
Yes.
Bang. And then Josiah, you got a great podcast. You want to give a shout out for that?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed this conversation. A lot of fun. So thank you guys for being here. And if you enjoyed listening to this, I would humbly suggest that you check out the. I don't know why I said it. That's weird. I'll make the strong, confident recommendation that you listen to the Enneagram 5 podcast. Cody, my co-host, and I, we take on a different topic in each episode through a 5 lens, and try to go deep and also bring in voices from our Enneagram 5 community. So it's a great place to start. And then if you want to go deeper from there are links in the description of every episode.
Brilliant. Thank you, friends. You got anything else, CJ?
I got nothing, man.
I'm Jeff Cookie. CJ Wilson is officially awesome. See you next time.